Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our August 12th, 2026 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. Paper copies of the agenda are available on the table by the door that you came through if you're here with us in person, and a full packet with all materials is available on our website. Reviewing the full agenda, first we'll consider our consent agenda, which has 6 items today. After that, we will have general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we do apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. And we reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and reference for our meeting minutes if comfortable doing so, and please address your comments to the Commission. We will hear from people in person first, then look to our Zoom meeting attendees. Please plan to use the raise your hand function online if you wish to provide your public comment virtually. Please also know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment concludes, we will move on to our regular business agenda for tonight. There are 2 items on our regular agenda. For each action item, we will hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the Commission first, and then we will open the floor to public comment that is relevant to that item. Once public comment is concluded, we'll bring the item back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote on action items. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. And with that, Commissioners, does anybody wish to take anything off the consent agenda for further discussion or questions?
1.4.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Entertain a motion for all other consent agenda items.
Motion to approve 1.1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Second.
Motion and seconded, although point of order, I forgot to ask, is there anybody in the public who wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, any virtual hands? Sean? Okay, sorry about that. Moved and seconded, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, the rest of those pass unanimously. And item 1.4, Commissioner Anderson, what questions do you have?
I noticed for 1.4 local emergency, the local emergency planning committee, it states in here that there's an option to appoint someone from the Board of County Commissioners. And that is not a conversation that we have had yet. So I was just kind of curious if that is something that this commission has discussed prior, if that is something that we would like to consider.
And Robert Benecki is online as well. Robert, I don't know if you want to add any additional comments on the agenda item.
I do. Good evening, Robert Benecki, Douglas County Emergency Management Director. No, that conversation hasn't happened to my knowledge, Commissioner. Typically, the person that was in the position last time has agreed to stay. It's Greg Gardner. We would have had that to you in May, and I apologize for not getting that memo to you in May to consider Greg, but Greg is willing to stay on the board. He's currently the chair of the LEPC and very active with the LEPC and the Emergency Management Board.
Okay, so there's not an additional opening for a county commissioner on the committee?
So it's an appointee. It's the commission's appointee to the committee.
So the commission would be appointing themselves to the committee?
They would appoint, you would appoint Greg Gardner if you wish, or somebody else to the committee.
Okay. And so if the commission decided to appoint a commissioner to the committee, they would be appointing a commissioner to the committee?
That's possible. Yes, ma'am.
But to be clear, there's one appointee from the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners on this as a member.
I have a question for Robert. Are there term limits here? I know Greg has served a couple of terms and the terms are really short. They're only a year. And he's been phenomenal on there and chairing that committee. But is there a time when he times out? I know he's eligible to serve this time.
It's not in the bylaws that they would term out, but it is a 1-year term with approval from the commission to keep him on. I do know that Greg has expressed to me that this would be his last year as an appointee if he was appointed.
I'll just speak on behalf of Greg. I know him pretty well. He's very involved and has been in the group for quite some time and really takes his role very seriously.
And I'll add, Greg has been affiliated with emergency management for quite some time. He is one of our volunteers and is active in that organization. And it was welcoming to have him be appointed to the commission because he's active and he's very involved. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the only question I had. When we had the opportunity to have the emergency management training with you and your team, it was mentioned that there could be further opportunities for the Board of County Commission to engage with emergency management. So when I saw this come before us and that there was the potential for a Board of County Commission, for the potential for the Board of County Commission to appoint a commissioner to this particular committee, I just thought it would be a good opportunity to have the conversation with you and to see if this was a good opportunity for the commission to engage with emergency management. But maybe next year, when Greg's term is up, maybe we could have that conversation prior to the next appointment.
Very, very would welcome that. And I would also say that if you're interested in, or any of the commission is interested in attending the executive committee meeting, their public meetings monthly, and then the board meetings meet quarterly, please attend and provide input as needed.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, commissioners. Since we pulled this, we'll go ahead and ask if anybody in the public has any questions or comments they'd like to make about this consent agenda item. Seeing no takers here, just checking for virtual hands, Sean. All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the commission for motion.
Recommend we approve consent agenda item 1.4.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. That moves us past our consent agenda, commissioners, and on to general public comment. Is there anybody here who wishes to make general public comment about any items that are not on today's agenda?
On M66049. In 2023, the Public Health After Dark Forum reported that 43% of all overdose deaths in Douglas County from 2018 to 22 involved fentanyl. A similar rate of overdose deaths involved opioids. From 2020 to 2024, the state reports Douglas County was among the top 10 counties with the highest fatal overdose burden. Kansas Division of Public Health reports in Lawrence 2025, there were 322 suspect all-drug overdose emergency department visits among residents. In that same period, homelessness increased from a low in January 23 of 142 to a high of 527 this year, with a corresponding increase in the chronic homelessness population in which much drug addiction resides. On June 6, 23, Lawrence, Kansas police responded to 3 separate fentanyl overdose incidents. One person didn't survive. On March 7th, 2025, a Lawrence man died of fentanyl overdose, leaving behind a young son. In mid-25, Kansas Department of Health identified 33 opioid emergency department visits, more than double what would be expected. People are overdosing on our streets. Drug dealers and their targets are attracted to a market offering free services. Dealers make no distinction between those that are homeless and those that are not. Dealers want to grow their addicted population. These are serious issues. The Department of Housing and Urban Development in 2013 identified the Housing First model, and it's changing. In 26, the funding model will now define success not by dollars spent or housing units filled, but by how many people achieve long-term self-sufficiency and recovery. It is a treatment-first model. Future funding priorities will place greater emphasis on substance abuse treatment and mental health services. Scott Turner, HUD leader, emphasizes taxpayer dollar stewardship. He says we will no longer throw money at problems without results. Outcome metrics will be required. My question tonight to the board is how will you respond to the HUD changes in the funding model? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else here who would like to provide general public comment?
I have to press the button on this. Okay. Okay. My name is Dominique Sexton 66049. I just wanted to say that I'm interested in the updates on the Wakarusa open space plan. I saw that on a previous agenda that it was potentially slated for today, and I checked today's agenda and I didn't see that there was a definitive date. So I guess my request would to maybe put a definitive date on it. I'm very interested in seeing how that is going to be implemented, especially since I'm not as familiar with the county. I'm not familiar with the city on how the budget works, but it is something that I would like to see discussed during the budget if there is a way to allocate money towards the open space. I know, well, from what I understand, that some of the open space has, like the plan has stepped back a little bit from allocating county money towards it, but I would advocate that we do implement and spend money, county money. And I know it's going to be an unpopular opinion, but the county should acquire land, I believe, in the Wakarusa area and other sensitive tracts of land for long-term stabilization of our ecosystem and also long-term financial stability for us. It gives us sovereignty as an entity too as well. If we have development proposals come in, we can negotiate and we can work with food sovereignty. Like there's a lot of different options that we could do when we start conserving land. And I know it's not always my most popular opinion either is to have the government own the land, but I think considering what we were seeing in our local environment recently and the way that we are going to move forward with the way that that Lawrence is going to expand or annex and the way that the county might change some of its zoning and codes and the way that we might have a different comp plan or like those discussions that are happening, I do think the county should take some strong effort towards acquiring land in these sensitive areas to protect it. And there could be different ways that the county could make back money. You could lease it back to a farmer until there's a restoration plan. There's a lot of partnerships that could be made, provided that people are willing and unfortunately finances. But that is something that I'm interested in. And I appreciate the JEO report that was published recently for the Wakarusa area because it gives a lot of insight into different models that we could do for future development. Like we have to understand, and I see that the county is doing that as we develop, especially Lawrence West, it is going to put pressure upon our Wakarusa corridor. And that's going to have downstream effects to our sister communities in Eudora. It's going to have effects, downstream to the Kaw, to eventually the Missouri River. So that's what I want to talk about. Thank you.
Dominique, anybody else here for general public comment? Come on up.
Eric Hyde, 1601 West 27th Street. I just want to make a joke. There's this one really smart guy I used to know. He used to work in Minnesota. and this is a true story, but he used to work in finance, and he moved to Albania, but his name was Michael Ferguson. I think he's dead now, but he said one really good way to get a laugh. Let me just back up. You know, like when you're reading a fortune cookie. Oops, sorry. And you read the fortune, and then you add that one thing that's kind of like you get a fortune, and you could add, you know, I won't say it. All right. So that's not the joke. His joke was that you just say whatever you want, you know, and then at the end of it, you could say, due to climate change.
Eric, anybody else here for general public comment? Any virtual hands, Sean? Okay, I'll go ahead and close general public comment and move into our regular business agenda for tonight, starting off with item 3.1. And I believe, Sean, will you be introducing that for us?
Yeah, I will just sort of introduce the topic, then I'll hand it over to my friend and colleague, Zach Daniel, the city manager in Eudora. Before you tonight is a TIF district that the city of Eudora is looking to establish. And at this point, I'll let Zach kind of go through the particulars of that.
Appreciate that, Sean. Appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk to this group again about what we've got going on over in Eudora. I'm going to kind of bifurcate some of this presentation. We've got two lanes that we're looking at as far as materials in the agenda packet. First being the establishment of the TIF. Just to recap our process, we received an application from the developers for this project that led to a public hearing, which was held on July 27th. The project is being considered. It represents about 133 acres in Northeast Eudora for commercial and industrial development, commercial on the south side of that development and industrial more towards the north end of it. The public hearing was held on July 27th, held, opened and closed, and an ordinance adopted. That ordinance essentially did three things. It established the geographical boundaries of the TIF district. It determined that the district was eligible for the TIF mechanism as defined by statute, as well as set the baseline for which any tax increment would be generated would be based off of. So I'm sure you all know, but for the benefit of the group, what tax increment financing is taking the incremental tax generation within a set area for reimbursable project costs for public improvements for the project. So that public hearing was held, open, the ordinance adopted, and the essentially the notice period for both the Eudora School District and the county initiated. So that is primarily the reason for this interaction is we're within that period of notice for the school district and the county to consider the project, ask questions, see if there's any adverse effects from the project. So I'll pause there before I focus on the project area plan. No questions on that front? Okay, well then the next piece of that is the project area plan for project area 1. That is within the TIF districts, within all TIF districts, there's separate project areas that are identified and separate plans that are put together associated with those specific areas. Project area 1, as defined, is really concerned with just the southernmost portion of this project, the commercial area. All that has happened on the city end of things as it relates to that is the planning commission consideration of the project plan, which found it to be in conformance with the city's comp plan. It will then move on to a public hearing at the city commission meeting on September 28th. You all should receive through the county administrator's office a separate notice specific to that public hearing. And you'll have more information about that piece of the project at that point. But there is materials in your agenda packet now that have the feasibility analysis and the overall project plan as they are in their current state. But with that, if there are any questions about any of this, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any questions?
I guess I'd start with the property boundary or the TIF district boundary. Is that already annexed into the city of Eudora, or is that planned for annexation?
That's already annexed. It's all been
Already
annexed and zoned appropriately. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And a second question, the northeast portion of that, it's listed as being slated for industrial outdoor storage. Can you talk to me about what that might entail?
Quite honestly, I'd probably defer to the developers for more of that. As I understand it, especially as you get to the northern end of the project, some of their ultimate end users have not yet been identified. I think they're mostly going on the front end and being proactive, identifying uses that would fit out there versus specific end users, specific businesses, things like that.
Thanks.
This request is for 100% TIF, that we've recently seen more 90 and even 80%. Can you talk about the discussions with the developer on why you determined that 100% was needed rather than an 80 or a 90%?
In terms of the financials of the project, all we have to go off of at this point is the same materials you've seen that has the overall 100% request. The final business terms of the project will be hashed out within a development agreement between the city and the developer that will determine that level of increment and the areas of reimbursements that are going to be allowed for the district. So none of that at this point has been settled. So we've got the request for 100% of both the property and sales tax, but that has not been, those business terms have not been determined at this point. Will likely be part of the discussion at that September 28th public hearing as well.
Can I clarify, Zach, when you're talking about the business terms, or you're referring to the overall cost of the project that then would be recouped through property taxes? So it would be a not to exceed amount?
When I reference business terms, it's mostly in reference to an eventual development agreement, which will spell out the areas that are eligible for reimbursement that the city has agreed to, as well as the level of the increment, whether it's 100%, whether it's 70%, whether it's 80% of both property and sales taxes considered separately. I'm not at this point prepared to say with any definitiveness where we're going to be landing on those levels of increment.
And so if the city of Eudora negotiates something different, would it come back to the county? Because we would be impacted by those percentages.
That you would get specific notice on that project area plan ahead of that September 28th public hearing. We will be in pretty constant communication with the county on those pieces of it. Right now, we're fulfilling statutory notice requirements regarding the establishment of the district, and that's essentially the item that we are considering, the establishment of the district, less so the financial implications of the district, per where we're at in the process from a statutory standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like we would be noticed, but we would not have an additional vote after today.
Correct. You would have, technically speaking, you have 30 days from the close of that public hearing on the 27th to find some adverse effect and pass it by resolution and provide that resolution to the city, at which point that would have some impact on the creation of the district. You will be invited, as well as the school district, to participate and have specific notice sent to you on that separate public hearing that will happen in September.
Is there a reason why you're not waiting until you identify the final percentage and then coming back to us with 70%, 80%, 90% versus coming to us right now with 100%, yet it's not definitive?
We're coming with you right now because the state requires that this 30 days after that establishment of the district, we provide this notice, and then we make ourselves available to have questions about the district and the district creation, the establishment of the TIF. That doesn't necessarily speak to the financial details of that arrangement.
So the requirement that you have to meet only details that we must be informed, but it doesn't necessarily detail that this meeting should require a vote of the TIF percentage. So
correct.
Okay, so I guess the option before us is that you could notice us, but then maybe now is not the right time for us to vote on the percentage.
I think now is the time so notice is technically already happened via the certified mailing piece of it. And so this is a kind of a public show of that notice happening. You are within that period right now to ask these kind of questions that I can bring back to my governing body and at our council regarding the ins and outs of the plan, so we can get those answered, so you can make a better determination of whether or not it will have adverse effects on the county or not.
Okay.
So
So
if there are questions related to that, then we certainly take those and bring those back and provide response to the county administrator's office to relay that back to you all.
thank you. Appreciate it. I would say 100% absolutely would have adverse effect. So thank you.
Other questions, commissioners?
Yes, I just want to peg Sean a little bit. Just making sure this is the same, is this the same process that we have seen with other TIF districts, that they come for the establishment of the district, and then there's a separate conversation around the financing around the TIF itself? Can you just fill us in?
Yeah, with this particular, I don't think this is any different than you've seen them before. Or is it? I'm
Yeah, I mean, this feels very similar to the crossing project that we had a few years ago and that we established the district, at least in this case. Thank you, Zach. We have a hearing here where we talk about it so then we can weigh back in on with the city commission on what we can and kind of, that's just my recollection of it.
The recipe on consideration for these projects is largely spelled out via statute, and there's a pretty clear step 1, step 2. The pace at which you hear different pieces of the project may change based on whatever the end of project is. In this case, the notice of the district and the creation of the district at the close of that July 27th public hearing kicks off that 30-day period for you to consider. In previous TIF plans with the city, and the Nottingham TIF district, for example, that TIF district was established, and then we didn't see a project plan associated with that for several years after the fact. So in this case, the project is on a more accelerated pace, which does speak to, development happening over in the eastern part of the county.
So Nottingham, we had in front of you a couple of months ago. It may have been longer than that, but time flies. But yeah, that would be a very similar process to this. So again, if there are concerns with the project plan as it's being presented, or the district rather, that's the adverse effect that you all could certainly consider passing a resolution and seeking to not establish the district that way.
Any other questions for Alex or staff, commissioners? Thank you, Alex. We might have more questions after public comment. Appreciate it. Is there any member of the public who would like to make public comment about this item?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Matt Goff with Barber Emerson Law Firm. I represent the applicant Main Street Development Group, LLC. The purpose of this TIF district is to provide the means for the applicant to make horizontal infrastructure improvements that are necessary to create developable commercial and industrial lots. Utilizing tax increment financing would enable the developer to perform at the developer's expense the public improvements needed to make the area developable, such as streets, sanitary sewer, water line extensions. This is a pay-as-you-go project, so all the upfront costs are paid for by the developer. And if the tax increment does not fully reimburse the developer's costs, the city has no obligation to make up the difference, and neither does the county. If the TIF district is created, the county will continue to receive the taxes that it currently receives. There will be no reduction in your tax base. By statute, you have the ability within these 30 days to determine by resolution that this proposed district will have an adverse effect on the county. But if the project won't move forward without the approval of the district, the applicant is under contract, purchase the property, and could elect not to do so if the TIF district is not formed. And in that case, the owners of the property would be free to sell the property to someone else, and everyone would be in a holding pattern until another developer comes along. But one way or another, whether short time or long, the infrastructure improvements contemplated by this application will need to be made before any meaningful development can occur. The whole point of this application is to enable the improvements to be made sooner rather than later, to bring this land online for development and hopefully attract growth and development to Eudora's Eastern Gateway. I'll stand for questions that you have.
Thank you, Matt. That's my bad. I didn't realize that we had an applicant here, and so I didn't call for that before, but thank you for your comments.
No problem.
I'll go ahead and call, you can have a seat and I'll see if there's any other public comment.
Okay. Eric Hyde, 66046. Lawrence. I was interested in this. I went to Eudora City Commission, as I told you guys before, or told you commissioners before. Sorry I said you. I was very interested in it. Because this gets into what I want to say. I just don't think it's really fair that one developer can get all this public benefit and others can't. I do see the argument that anybody could go this route too with the TIF and everything. But I'm remembering what my dad said when I was growing up here in Lawrence about how Lawrence expanded so fast. He said he just would always complain about it, and he's a Democrat. Anyway, so that seems to be the thing that's going on here. We're going to develop this, and then it's going to more and more and more and more and more. So I looked up this thing called the but-for test. And so it basically the question with that is, the but-for test question is, would the project happen without the TIF? And it sounds like no, because that's what the lawyer just said. So that's the thought process there. So they're saying that there could be a lot of money from this later down the road. That could be a good thing. And I really like Zach. And I was devastated when they voted for this in Eudora. So I just walked out, just cut my losses and walked out. But I just don't like the conformity of it. It seems like we're all doing this sorts of stuff, and I just don't want things to change so much anymore around here. I just want them to go back the way they were. Maybe if there was more family stuff in that development, that might be better. But I don't know. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Is there anybody else here for public comment on this agenda item? Any raised hands online, Sean? Okay, thanks. Go ahead and close public comment and bring this back to the commission for any further questions you may have thought of, comments, discussion, motion.
Sean, as I understand it, no action is required unless we're going to reject the TIF formation.
That's correct. I think the motion in front of you is to effectively authorize support for the plan. So that's the action. If you want to not show that support, that would come in the way of passing a resolution, and that would be the direction you need to give us as staff to develop that resolution. But it would be a finding of an adverse effect on the county as a jurisdiction. So again, you do have an action in front of you today, which is authorizing support. If you didn't want to do that, then I would look for direction on preparing a resolution in the contrary. But to color that in with your question, if you take no action tonight, this would continue to move forward. Again, it's more of I would say, a ceremonial support more than anything.
Yeah, what I'm trying to figure out is if I need to recuse myself from a positive vote, if there is a positive vote.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's as we talked, if there is a motion, or there isn't a motion on the floor right now, but if there is a motion and anybody feels compelled that they need to recuse themselves for some reason, you're certainly welcome to do that for the reasons you may have.
Yeah, well, just, I guess this is for public information, but about a year and a half ago, I went to the group that's proposing this project. And at that time, I knew the EDC of Lawrence and Douglas County had an objective of finding 600 acres of new industrial commercial land. I sat down with the applicants. We mapped out potential acreage. It turned out the owner of that property did not want to sell. But it gave the applicants the idea of purchasing the 133 acres in question. I feel I'm somewhat responsible for them doing that. Both applicants donated to my political campaign. So in light of that, I feel I should recuse myself.
Thank you, Commissioner Dorsey. Appreciate knowing that. Commissioners, do we have any other questions or comments?
Maybe a comment, I don't see that it is adversely affecting, seeing that we get the base rate taxes that we would do now, so it doesn't put us behind below the line. Since Zach is here and wants that feedback, I think we have in the incentive packages that we have approved as recently, we haven't seen 100%. And so I think the cities, at least the city of Lawrence, and I may be mistaken on the city of Eudora, I'm sorry if I am, has done a good job of recognizing that while there should be some increment financing to help the developer with the infrastructure, and infrastructure, it's also, finding that tension that the community would like to see some benefit from the development that happens within the community, because the infrastructure that gets you up to the development was paid for by the community, possibly. And so to me, that's what I would express to the Eudora City Commission, is we'd like to see some percentage of the new value. Now, what that percentage is, I don't really have an answer on, because I think a lot has to do with the developer cost and things like that. So that would be the feedback, but I don't see an adverse impact on Douglas County, because our base tax rate would be the same as it is today going forward.
And processing in terms of, the base tax rate stays the same at 100% TIF district. We've often had the discussion around, like, what of the county services are there additional requests on the county services because of this? And in City of Lawrence, we've had some that were specifically housing related, which that EMS part of what we pay for is kind of county infrastructure. So I've been kind of looking through, like, well, is there a roads impact? And probably not. I think there's, designated corridors would probably go into this, and we can, you can respond to that here in a minute also. So I don't think that's an impact. I don't know that there's going to be an additional, like, sheriff's office response there. I'm trying to think, like, what county services would be impacted by the commercial industrial there. I think really more in terms of like the city of Eudora's fire department responding to new commercial and industrial development, but that's outside of our purview and a discussion they can have on their own. I am really kind of surprised, though, to see a 20-year 100% TIF. That's just something we don't usually see. Looks like, and maybe Zach, you can help kind of respond to this, that the school's been exempted, and so that's maybe the piece of the community that's benefiting within this. Can you talk about that?
The tax increment that the school has been exempted from is the 20 mils from the state, which would not be touched in regardless of the nature of the project. So that's kind of preserved and enshrined by the state for the school district. So that piece is not abated, no.
But the school district will have additional, they won't have impacts, but they won't see any additional increase to their funding other than the 20 mils that goes through the state. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, I have been before the school district, the Eudora School District, describing the project as well. And, broadly, there was no, at least at this point, no resolution of adverse effect. And at least from the superintendent and the school boards, the tenor of that conversation, I certainly don't want to speak for them, but was in support of the project. Their development kind of begats development. So if we have more employment opportunities in the eastern part of Douglas County, that will lead to more residential opportunities in Douglas County, which leads to more student headcount within the district. And so any pipeline that the school can see that will increase their headcount, they generally are supportive of that.
So I would say I don't have any difficulty with the outline of the TIF district and authorizing the creation of the TIF district. And I feel like too many of those other conversations digging into, if I can't find adverse effects to the county itself, that those are then discussions for the city of Eudora to have. So that's kind of where I am sitting at the moment and hear from other commissioners.
And to speak on that point too, about access to the site, it's primarily going to be within the city off of 10th Street. But then part of the appeal to the project is its proximity to that K10 interchange on the east part of the state, which will hopefully compel some additional investment on KDOT's part to help close that gap between Johnson County and South Lawrence Trafficway on K10 improvements.
And the applicant then is carrying the cost for the road improvements, the sewer infrastructure, water infrastructure for that development. And
yeah, it's structured as a pay-as-you-go model, so they don't receive any incremental any reimbursement unless they at first make the investment in that those improvements.
And so I know Eudora has been in need of a new water tower, water treatment facilities. Will this help pay into any of that in any way other than,
Any time we can add additional utility users to our water facility, our water utility is all to the good, because in this project, any of the residential projects we've talked about, when we're talking about packaging different public involvement, has not really spoken about abating or waiving any utility fees or impact fees or things like that. So the end result is just additional customers to our water utility, which, yes, to answer your question, will help fund additional the water treatment plant improvement that we're speaking about.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in reviewing this, for me, the only thing that stood out as a potential adverse effect, to your point, Commissioner Willie, is, and I don't even know that it'd be adverse, it's just that it will be a new pressure on the fire department for your city. And to some degree EMS too, I think, but probably primarily the fire department, just to have, that industrial land in particular. But that's all a part of growth anyway.
Right.
Given the location of it, adverse impacts on the transportation infrastructure doesn't seem obvious to me at all. And I agree with Commissioner Kelly that, any increase in tax revenue, however incremental it is over time, is of benefit. And I do also appreciate that over the years, the conversations that we've had with different TIF districts that have come before us, with the city in particular, that we have been able to see some variation in the percentage, and a lot of requests for 100% that is not what the end deal is. So I would encourage that I hope that's a significant part of the conversation, that with the developer after this, if this district is successfully established, about what seems reasonable there, and what that intentional investment in the community during that 20 years can look like. So I will look forward to hearing more about that, but I am supportive of this and hopeful that getting through this step, and to your point, Alex, having a process in this instance that's a little bit accelerated so far, that maybe that's good momentum, and that there's real opportunity to see some growth to our tax base and some infrastructure improvements that are significant if they come to fruition.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It is very much an active conversation, that level of increment. The review of the financial feasibility of the project is an ongoing process at this point. So I don't have anything definitive to tell you in that respect, but I can confirm that those conversations that you are compelling us to have are definitely happening.
Great. Love to hear it. Other comments or any clarifying questions from commissioners?
Happy to make a motion.
Great.
Motion to support the tax increment financing TIF district near K10 Highway and E2300 Road in Eudora, Kansas.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Same
Nay.
sign. And Commissioner Dorsey, for the record, you
I recuse myself.
okay, great, thank you. All right, so just for the record, that's 3 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 recusal. All right, thank you, everybody. With that, we will move on to item 3.2, and a planning item, and I'll welcome Denny up to introduce that for us.
Catherine.
I can
Sorry,
never-
sorry,
I can
sorry,
never
sorry.
Replace Denny.
I apologize.
Never. Okay, so one little update on the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint that's in the packet, which I'm sure you all looked at, was the PowerPoint from Planning Commission. I just want to let you know that in this PowerPoint, I did update the slide for what your actual action is at the end. That's a little different from what the Planning Commission saw. So my name is Catherine Week. I'm one of the planners in the planning office. I'm here to present a comprehensive plan amendment that is before you. It has already been to the Planning Commission. It also goes before the City Commission. And just for everyone in the room, a little bit about process. You may be wondering why a comprehensive plan amendment is coming before you when it's part of a package that's currently going through application processes within the city. Any comprehensive plan amendment to Plan 2040, we're a joint jurisdiction. That plan covers both jurisdictions. So anytime there's a comprehensive plan amendment to that plan, it comes before both governing bodies, both the county and the city. This plan area also happens to encompass a lot of land that is outside of the city limits. So, but any comprehensive plan amendment to Plan 2040 would come before both jurisdictions. So I just want to make that clear. This is a comprehensive plan amendment to the west of K10
Catherine,
plan.
do you have your PowerPoint share the screen?
It is, I thought it was share,
right.
but I will. So if I click share at the top. Is it sharing? Oh, okay, got you. Wrong share button. Thank you very much. All right, let's try this again. All right, you can probably see that now. All right, so again, this is for the comprehensive plan amendment. And I'll skip to the next slide where I was at. So this comprehensive plan amendment is to the west of K10 plan. All of our area and sector plans are adopted by reference in the comprehensive plan, which is why when we have a change to an area plan, it also is basically a change to Plan 2040. So that's why it's before you. A little bit about this area. It is west of K10, as the name in the plan indicates. There is some area that is also east of K10, but the area of question for the comprehensive plan amendment is all west of that K10 delineating line. So this is just to orient you. This is the area map of where that whole package is coming. The comprehensive plan amendment is a slightly smaller area. It is primarily focused, and if I can show my mouse here, I don't know if you can see that, up here at the top, and then along this side and down here. So it's primarily this central and larger area that we're going to be talking about in the comprehensive plan amendment. A couple key points for this, just to orient everyone. The applicant is requesting a plan, so this is a development-driven request, and that is how they come typically before the planning office. Occasionally, they will initiate either the governing body will initiate an update to an area plan. This particular plan is also in the works of an overall comprehensive plan. That is not before you tonight. It is mid-process. So anytime we get an application that we, as planning staff, have to review, based on timeline, if, the plan has not been updated, we have to process that amendment request and go through the criteria points and bring that before the governing body. So that's where we're at. This west of K10 plan, the location is currently designated for a multitude of uses and open spaces. The plan outlines development area roughly bounded by Highway 40 on the north, Kansas State Highway on the east, and Bob Hellings on the south. As I mentioned, there is some area of the plan east of 10, but that is not what we are talking about today. A little process note, comprehensive plan amendments must be approved by the Planning Commission, the City Commission, and the Board of County Commissioners. If for some reason one of these bodies would vote to deny the amendment does not move forward. However, other applications that are in process could continue to go through the process. The consequence of a denial would just impact that one criteria point in the review of those other applications. So it may then not meet the comprehensive plan amendments criteria points, but other amendment or other criteria points may be met for that whole application package. So again, all three boards must approve for the amendment to move forward. Planning Commission has heard this item. They are making a recommendation to forward it on to both you and the City Commission for approval. So the scope of what this amendment is, because there is a lot of, and this was kind of noted in the Planning Commission, there is a lot of red line in certain sections of the plan. The scope of what the ask is just to update the future land use map. And then staff, because we were looking at the revision potential land use map, there are elements in that plan that are outdated that reference the SMART code and a form of review called T&D, or traditional neighborhood design. The SMART code was repealed in 2025, in March of 2025, so that is not applicable anymore. So because this was before staff took it upon themselves to go ahead and note where those obsolete code sections would be, and that is most of what the red line is. And then updating the zoning districts to the current zoning districts that were changed when we adopted the new land development code. So that's the majority of the change in red lines. However, this particular request would focus on that future land use map. And staff should note also that this is not a comprehensive plan adjustment. We did not go through and update all of the traffic maps and everything else. This is specific to this applicant's request just for the future land use map. And the goals in the plan are not changing. So that is not a change to the plan. So this is an image for generally what is being proposed here. The existing future land use map is on the left in this slide. That will show you kind of where there is that blue area that you see. That is that church property that is already platted. The darker red areas just above that is where there is a little bit of a shift. There will be some high residential zoning that is moved up to that area. There is already high residential in the comprehensive plan area for this property, or this plan area, but it is shifting up towards that northern portion of the plan. And then primarily along the western side of that K10 corridor, there is a shift from a industrial focused chunk of land, which is the purple, to a smaller a parcel that is not party to this amendment would stay that industrial focused zoning, but the red would, or the commercial center zoning would carry down along basically that whole western side of the K10 corridor. I should note too that all of this comprehensive plan amendment is in tier 2. It does not venture west a little more into tier 3. So this is all land focused in tier 2. Tier 2 is land that is anticipated to be annexed or developed that was anticipated in Plan 2020. That was anticipated potentially when this plan was drafted in 2009. And then it's also anticipated in 2040 that there would be expansion in this direction.
Catherine, can I interrupt you with a quick question on that?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of discussion at the Planning Commission meeting about a small portion that was in Tier 3, but that's not for us in this approval. Is that what you're saying?
That is
Okay.
not in this plan area because the land designation use that is currently in the future land use plan anticipates the level of intensity that the applicant is proposing in that area. So it would not be a comprehensive plan amendment for that particular section of their
Okay.
proposal. It's only a comprehensive plan amendment where the land use has shifted. So as with any application, we have an outline of review criteria that staff has to look at. And I like to go through these both for commissioners and for anyone who is interested in projects or likes to know what is going on, what we're looking at. These are the review criteria for a comprehensive plan amendment. We look at how potentially, or how does the proposed amendment address a potential change in circumstance or any unforeseen condition that was maybe not understood or addressed at the time the plan was adopted. In this case, maybe length of time is the biggest thing from when this plan was originally adopted. We now have a second comprehensive plan. This West of K10 plan obviously did not anticipate what was going to come in Plan 2040. A lot of the goals do align with Plan 2040, but primary focuses of those goals may have shifted. That was talked about a little bit in the Planning Commission meeting. Again, staff came to the conclusion that there are some things that maybe were not foreseen at the time the plan was created. COVID hit, development has changed a bit. Priorities in the community maybe have changed a bit from types of development that we're looking for. We're definitely looking for a very varied opportunity for housing, that type of thing. So staff did feel that it met this particular criteria. The second is, how does the proposed amendment advance a clear or public purpose? The applicant has stated in their application that they feel, this does provide additional employment opportunities, which is one of the things in the comprehensive plan that is a goal. It does provide various housing zoning designations, which can provide a mix of housing types. One benefit too of our new land development code is that many of the zoning districts now, while they may not be listed as mixed, and that zoning district is not proposed here, they do permit a mix of uses. So some of the uses that maybe were permitted in the lighter industrial zoning is also permitted in CC. So I think the applicant can talk to you a little bit more about the types of uses that they're thinking, but staff did feel that it could potentially, based on the applicant's proposal, advance a clear or public purpose. How is the proposed amendment consistent with long-range goals and policies of the plan? Again, this is where we go back and we look at those long-range policies in Plan 2040. And then we also look at the policies that are outlined in the West of K10 plan. Staff does feel that they still align. And even though maybe priorities might be shifting, they still align with the overall goals of Plan 2040, and they align with the overall goals that are listed in the West of K10 plan, which is for things like transition of neighborhoods to commercial areas, mix of neighborhood types, preserving open and rural areas. Those are all listed as goals within those plans. So how does the proposed amendment result in a reasonably compatible land uses? I think I outlined this a little bit in the staff report. We have tools for transitions. These types of uses that they're proposing on the west of K10 side, both CC and high density residential, require proximity to transportation avenues or transportation ports, larger intersections. So that does meet those compatible land use requirements and also provide a buffer as their lower residential districts are still proposed to the west. So staff did also feel that it met that criteria point. And then how does the proposed amendment reflect the adjacent neighborhood's desired outcome? Again, staff felt that it did meet this criteria based on where they were proposing the changes, primarily focused on those higher density or higher intensity use designations, would still be generally in the same area. We're going from industrial to commercial, and high residential is basically shifting up, but still similarly along that corridor. So staff did feel that it was reasonably compatible with anticipated land uses. How does the proposed amendment reflect, or how would the proposed amendment advance the interest of the citizens of Lawrence and Douglas County as a whole? And staff felt that it could still meet the goals outlined in Plan 2040 and the West of K10 plan. And maybe it's just updating to what current community priorities may be. So I would be happy to stand for, oh, actually, I'm going to give you your action. So staff is recommending that you approve the amendment request. And then we would carry that. I mean, you're not making a recommendation, but we would definitely carry that forward to the city commission meeting and let you know what your decision was. So.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate the presentation. Commissioners, any questions for Catherine or the applicant? Do we have the applicant here? Yes, okay. So let me give the applicant an opportunity to come forward first, actually, and add anything you'd like to staff presentation, and then commissioners might have questions.
Okay. Hi, Commissioners. Corby Rust with Land Plan Engineering. I have been working on this quite a while. Part of this comprehensive plan amendment and this annexation process is the rezoning. We have asked for 5 zone districts that are all consistent with the existing West of K10 plan: 70 acres of low density single family, 17 acres of medium density residential, 24 acres high density, 127 acres of commercial center. And again, this kind of covers the zoning that was in the West of K10 plan with the old zoning code. There was a lot of mixed use zoning. The CC we find to be the kind of all-encompassing zoning that we can use for a multitude of uses. So that's why CC was the chosen zoning. And 51 acres of P2 open space prior to the West of K10 plan's existence. There was no conservation easement, and now a 51-acre conservation easement exists. As Catherine mentioned, the noticeable omission was the industrial warehousing zoning district, which largely lies within the established conservation easement. So in lieu of that industrial zoning, we now have our 51 acres of conservation. So in reality, our amendment only slightly differs from the existing comp plan. The overall land use remains consistent. Part of this submittal was a service plan. We are in the process of basically master planning the entire area, and the service plan proves to be very important in that process. We lay out future sanitary sewer service, stormwater mitigation, preserved streams, natural detention areas, water distribution, public transit, and public streets and right-of-way. We've laid out George Williams Way as it connects to Bob Billings. We know that we now have a city standard street, North 875 Road, that's going to create that intersection. And we know we're going to have at least a neighborhood collector going north. So you lay out the streets, and naturally it kind of changes how things are going to be zoned and how it's going to change your land use. And so that's what we've done, is we've changed the land use and changed the zoning, and therefore comprehensive amendment plan. identified community benefits, and identified emergency services going forward. So we've gained staff approval, and we were voted for initiation by the City Planning Commission last month. I was prepared to talk about the tier 2, tier 3, but it looks like I don't have to. So I will just finish by saying this annexation provides a great opportunity to plan proper growth across a large area by way of proper land use, street layout, connectivity, stormwater, recreation, and preservation. We believe that the proposed is ideal for both existing land conditions and location per the planned growth area. We've done our due diligence with the submittal, and we ask for your approval tonight. Again, I've put quite a bit of work into this, so I'm prepared to answer any questions you might ask. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant while he's up here?
I had one question about that reduction of the industrial zoning down to that little square. Is there something already there?
So a lot of what the planned industrial use was overlaps that conservation easement. So we have the basically 51 acres kind of right in the middle of everything. And that changes how we lay out our streets, and it just changes a lot. And so it kind of takes like a big swath of industrial out of the picture.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the little square that's left, is there something planned for that?
Yes, that little square that's left is the R3 medium density. And the idea there is to put, if you're going to have a large park space, is to put residential near it. So it's that little, what's left kind of surrounding the conservation easement is our residential areas. Oh, talking about which square? Oh, yeah, that little square belongs to the Jimenez family, and it's residential now, and yeah, so that's why it's left out. I think we have 4 landowners, and they are not one of them. So, how about the other square?
Sorry, I have some questions that could go for either of you. And it's between, there is an open space designation and
Can't figure out how to turn my ringer off. I'm sorry. New phone.
On the existing, and the shape of that then is very different from the conservation easement that's being offered in the proposed. So I guess I'm curious, like what are the land features that originally were being looked at for open space versus the land features that are being looked at for that conservation easement now?
Yeah, so the conservation easement exists. We looked into maybe trying to change the shape of that, but that's not going to happen. We possibly even adding to it. With the service plan, we identified a lot of the natural drainage ways, and so they're not essentially a part of the conservation easement, but they function along with it. And so we know we'll have our stream buffers and everything else. So it's actually going to be a larger area, but the conservation easement existed.
So the conservation easement is already in place, and it would take a long time. What is allowed there and what isn't? Because every conservation easement is different.
It's different. Yeah. And we've looked into that too. And we know it's going to be, some form of public open space. We know that our multi-use trail is going to traverse it. We know it's going to be usable, but we haven't really got into that quite yet.
So it's different than being listed as a future park or something like that. You just don't know yet to that level. Is that what I'm hearing?
Hey, Catherine, do you know what the rules on that one are? I know
I don't know the specifics of what the actual conservation easements currently is prohibiting. I think it's any type of development, but I am not 100% definitive on that. But one thing I did want to mention is, if you notice in the existing future land use plan, all of that green area, including like the stream channel and everything, is noted as open space. One reason why that can potentially change to not include the stream area is because now with our new land development code, we have code language in place that wasn't in the previous code, where you have to protect stream buffers anyway and a significant area to the side of stream buffers. So even though it's not specifically designated as open space with that little squiggly line going through the middle of the plan, it would still have to be protected. So there is code provisions to keep those areas open. I think what Corby is saying is that originally the open space area was delineated as like a long rectilinear a rectangle in the middle of the plan, and they're adding some area to that to kind of increase that area in the central location. Hopefully that answered most of your questions. I'm sorry I cannot answer the specifics except the conservation easement itself, like what the document says.
Okay, maybe Catherine might want to stay for this one though. So originally there was a strip of land that was designated for open space. Presumably it had some kind of features. It wasn't just, that this was the rectangle left over, that there was something specific being preserved there. And then when that shape changes to a different kind of set of acres, I'm just curious, like, which is the gain? What are we preserving in those?
Yeah, so I think originally in this plan, the stream buffer areas and the waterways are the ones that are delineated that were actually designated that way for protection. The actual green hatched areas in that plan, one's up to the north and one is that rectilinear, were designated for potential either open space or park. So I don't know specifically if there's what we might classify as sensitive lands there on those particular little swaths that are already hatched. But they were intended for possible future park development. So they would be like green space for the neighborhoods and or development that took place.
Probably another Catherine
Okay.
question. I know it was noted there are some areas within at least some parts of this plan, maybe not what's being proposed to change here right now, but that have some really high quality prairies and such. Do we know how those are impacted by the vote we'd make tonight?
So even if the plan, the amendment would go forward, as I mentioned, in the land development code, we have a whole section now for sensitive lands. And there are defined sensitive lands in the land development code now. Prime agriculture would not be one of them. That's something that's protected. The county is very interested in protecting the prime agricultural soils in A1 and A2 or AG2 districts. That would not be as specifically protected. Once it's annexed, then it could potentially be developed. However, there are other sensitive lands like floodways, drainage ways, streams, buffer areas, native prairies, stands of trees. I'm not sure my list is comprehensive, but that gives you the gist of significant slopes, I think is another one. So those things would still have to be protected. And there are significant areas throughout this whole plan area that have those things in them. So the development or the developers would have to be cognizant of those things when they're submitting their platting actions and their future site plans. There potentially might be easements, large swath of drainage easements, stream buffers that have to be part of those platting actions and future applications. So.
And the conversations for that then would happen during annexation and during rezonings and platting, et cetera. So that would go to the planning commission and the city commission. It wouldn't come here, but there would be eyes on.
There would definitely be eyes on. So major subdivisions go before the planning commission and the city commission. They're not administrative. And then major site plans would be administrative. But again, we have that code language. We have those teeth in the codes now where, we can make sure these things are protected when they're developing the individual sites. So we kind of have a tier of things here that you are only looking at the top tier right now. That's comprehensive plan amendment. We still have annexation and rezoning, which are at the top tier or the secondary tier. And then after those actions, they have the platting subdivision tier for development. And then further all the way down to individual parcels, we have site planning and building permits. So right now we're up here, we're at the comprehensive overall planning stage. So.
Thank you.
I don't know quite how to ask my question, so I'm going to take a stab at it here. Catherine, can you put up you had the slide that has the existing and proposed. I may have some level of color blindness that's giving me challenges. Okay, so when I look at this, I see that the amount of industrial, what's purple on the left and what's purple on the right, has reduced significantly, correct?
Mhm.
Then do you know the percentage that's gone from open space on the left, the green hatched, to the conservation easement? Is it the same amount of space, just organized differently, or is it a different amount of space?
I think Corby can answer that better than I do. He may have the square footage as a
Yeah.
percentage.
Yeah, so it appears that what they did was they greened out one particular tract of ground. So they just identified a parcel and said, we're going to call this open space. And I'd have to go look at the rezoning. I'd have to go look at the annexation legals to tell, but I think the 51 acres is significantly more.
Okay. And then what was, and so now I'm going down K10. What was residential office right there in between open space and that dark brown patch? That is you're requesting that we change it to all commercial. Is that correct?
Yes, all of the red or the brick red color would be the proposed new commercial area.
Okay. And then the spot, this is where I struggled with the colors a little bit. The spot below the green squiggle line on the left and what is now on the right, what are those two different zones?
So those were high density residential. So that is what is shifting up to where there is currently that little, it almost looks like a boomerang shape at the corner of the intersection there. So that is now shifting up to be the high density residential at the north. And I think the brown is the medium density. No, that's the very high residential at the north, and then the high residential would be where it remains brown
So along
or goldish brown. Yeah.
goldish brown, that's my question. Yeah. So along that K10 corridor there, you have high residential, and that's what it's always been. It just changed colors a little bit.
Let me look at the plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Colors are so similar. Okay. So the big change here I mean, there may be a little bit of change. I don't want to say a little bit, but the total square footage of area from open space to conservation easement is about the same. What we're reducing here is really the medium density residential that went further up, right? Because that is a reduction of medium density residential, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners?
Still stuck on this a little bit, if that's all right. How is the conservation easement decided? Were those the landowners that said, this is where we want this conservation easement?
Yes.
Right.
Yep. And it is permanent and not to be changed. So.
Okay.
And really just to kind of reiterate why some of the zoning changed is because once you start laying out streets, it changes things. So south of that conservation easement, you're going from Bob Billings north to 6th Street, to the east of it and to the west of it. So a lot of that large zoning area is actually part of our area-wide stormwater plan. And it's part of our street right-of-way. So it reflects one zoning, but there's a lot going on in it as far as the preservation areas and as far as the streets.
More questions, commissioners?
Knowing that we're also going through the Clarion Diagnostic Review, is there a reason that this is not a part of that process?
I would say that it's a separate thing altogether, just from the standpoint of time. The diagnostic review, as you know, we were just in phase one of that, so I'd equate that to chapter one of a 10-part series. So I don't think we could sit necessarily and wait on all applications like this, just given the length of time and the length of discussions that are yet to be had with that particular review process.
How often do we, for comprehensive plan amendments, how often do developers come before the planning commission and we amend the comprehensive plan to this degree?
No, I don't know if I could necessarily answer that. I would say, it depends on the comprehensive plan in and of itself and how long it's been around. So naturally, the plan is meant to be flexible. It's meant to be adaptable based off of changes. As you heard from the applicant, a lot of things have happened since, was it 2009, I think was one reference point here. So we're almost, 17 years into it. But Catherine, I don't know, how often you guys process comprehensive plan amendments on on an annual basis, but.
Yeah, various comprehensive plan amendments. Sometimes they're as small as one parcel at a time. This one is a little different in that it's an area that is currently undeveloped. It has an area plan, and it is a significant portion that's being proposed. So we don't get them as often, but we do, comprehensive plans do come in. So I don't know if that clarifies it, but this one is a little unique also just because it was identified as a plan that needs to be revised. And we are mid-process in doing that. We've had some engagement opportunities. We had a public meeting at the town hall. Actually, it's almost been 2 years now, but we had a large online survey that, and it is not at the point where it could, based on time and time of applications, it is not at the phase where it could be finished before any other applications maybe would come forward. It's kind of in the middle. I should say there's still a lot of work to be done on it. There's some draft language, but the draft language has not gone out for public engagement, which is a standard process for any type of overall to a comprehensive plan amendment. I will say, because I am one of the planners that's working on that plan amendment also, is that it does generally align as it generally aligns with the current plan. So it generally falls into what was being discussed by both the participants in the survey. I'm not speaking for anyone, but not everything is identical, but it does run along the same vein. In that we were looking at changing the plan to meet more intensity-based uses instead of just zoning-based uses. And then the land development code was adopted, which also does that. The zoning districts now kind of have a mix of uses. And so it's all kind of moving forward in that general direction, which kind of speaks to what staff was trying to get at as things have changed over time since this was originally adopted. The way we look at our zoning districts is slightly different. The way we look at land uses is slightly different. So it's generally moving in a similar direction, but maybe not identical parcel by parcel. Oh, yes, I can.
So were you indicating that this process has been going on for 2 years or another process?
So the overall modification or update to the whole west of K10 plan.
Okay.
This process has not been going on for 2 years.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Any other questions, commissioners, before we open up public comment? Okay, thanks for being up here. You can have a seat. Is there anybody here who wishes to provide public comment on this particular agenda item?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Dominique Sexton, 66049. So I was looking at the Register of Deeds. The conservation easement was put in 2004. So that's something that was already on the land. I don't know the extent of the land that was put under the conservation easement, but that is public knowledge that it is under KLT's jurisdiction. And I wanted to talk about kind of like the concept of open space and like the storytelling of maps. So when we see the old map, I can understand that we have different land use based on the zoning, all the codes, this stuff very confusing. I understand it's changed. There's a lot more flexibility. But when I see the original map, I do appreciate the fact that the Yankee Tank is considered part of the open space because I think that tells a story. Now, whether or not that is protected under the zoning through technicalities, I think is a separate discussion from the public's ability to look at a comprehensive plan and understand the story that's being told behind that, right? Because if you don't see the open space corridor along that stream, you don't understand that the Yankee Tank is there unless you're looking at a different map. And I think it's actually really cool that you could see that in our comprehensive plan. So that was one of the reasons I actually would prefer that we have that maintained in the updated map, is that we do keep those open space designations for land use, because even though the zoning might be considered commercial or the zoning might be, you know, mixed use or whatever the zoning is, the land use in itself is still considered open space because it would be protected by the zoning. So that would be my suggestion, is that we do keep that, because that's a good storytelling map for us to show that we do care and protect about our open spaces and that we're being mindful of them as we go forward. I do get a little sensitive when we talk about the open space, because of the history of this area. So we know that this whole entire area back in the 1990s used to be Elkins Prairie, and that got plowed over because of the controversy of the SLT and where the different iterations of the SLT are. And this is the same developer who did the New Boston Crossing, and we're having the same issue where the story is not being fully told. We're not understanding the complete story. I understand that the city staff are doing their due diligence and understanding the story of planning, but I think this is not the full story. We have to remember the history of this entire area. We now have a highway that is being justified for higher intensity uses, even though we do know that portion of land that is under the new map industrial has Mead's milkweed on it, and that is verified by KBS. So we need to be very careful and understanding that this entire area still has sensitive creatures in it, and it still has a potential for that. And we need to understand that history. We can't just blow it over, which is why I think that we should make sure that we do due diligence with the map. And I think when we define prairie under the city code, it's only voluntarily listed prairie. It's not identified prairie. And that's something that needs to also be considered into this high level discussion. We can get into codes, that's not our place, but that I think is a high view. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else here who wishes to provide public comment on this item? Okay, seeing no one in person. Any online hands, Sean? Okay. With no more public comment, we will bring it back to the commission for any additional questions that may have bubbled up. Thoughts, discussion, motions. Okay. Actually, I'm seeing some pondering faces, so maybe they're bubbling. I don't want to rush anybody.
I don't have any further questions. I think, so what I'm seeing here is not how drastically different it is. It doesn't seem to me to be drastically different than what's in the existing K-10 plan. And what I'm recognizing is this is the approval of a future land use map. There is still another level of zoning that would need to happen by individual parcel. And then there would be another level of individual development plans on each parcel. After watching the Planning Commission meeting, I had the impression that this was a very large change, and that's not what I'm seeing here. Is it a change? It is a change. But what I do know is that our need for industrial land is not as intense over here as was once thought. There's some limitations in the discussions I've heard about where possible industrial development will go is not here. So an adjustment to the map seems to make sense to me for that. I agree with Dominique. I sort of do like the little green lines that follow the stream corridors. I think that's really great to have. And I understand that it's easier. And I will say, like, that happens in our code as well, is that we have corridors for these that protect it. But I appreciate the public comment around wanting to see those actually articulated in our maps. And it's helpful to understand that. But I'm interested to hear what other commissioners think right now. I'm leaning towards supporting the comprehensive plan request.
Have some similarities there. And actually, I also want to say, continuing to show the stream corridors on the map is really useful, because I was trying to compare the two and compare to the GIS to see, does that conservation easement touch what would likely be that stream corridor? And I think it can, and it does, but just that would help kind of intuitively have some understanding over what can or should happen in different parcels of the land there. So it's just a note. In terms of the changes, we're looking at land that could be developed to land that could be developed to something else. I don't think it's a significant change in the future land use in terms of like what the species on the ground would experience under either of these scenarios. I am curious about, as I looked on the GIS again, about the area that was previously slated for open space versus the area that's proposed and does have a conservation easement on it for open space. And both seem to be previous farm fields that were terraced and are now in hay ground. It's just from the look of it. So I don't know that there's a significant like sensitive lands that are being captured in either one of those, which also means we're not giving anything up by not having the previous shape to the conservation easement that's there. There are some areas that probably are likely with some sensitive lands, and I'm glad that Catherine pointed out that that is part of the process. It's just not part of this immediate process. But I do tend to want to get bogged down into that, because we won't see this again, but I know that there will be a lot of eyes on it that will be watching for those things in particular, and it's part of that code and part of the city's ongoing code too. So the change itself is not, I don't think, especially significant to me in terms of what's likely to happen on that land. So just you say changing and adapting community priorities around what can happen there. I do think that the city of Lawrence is highly anticipating this land, some of these portions to be developed and to be annexed, and is part of their long-term growth and needed growth. So I don't want to be standing in the way of that based on some small pieces that I think are significant, but that I think will be caught in future processes.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to those comments, and think that given the grand scheme of things, that while to some degree, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Kelly's comments that the Planning Commission discussion about it, and to some degree, the sort of density of the content in our packet makes it seem like there are some significant impacts. It seems more, at least at this level and phase of the process and planning for this sector, it seems more technical than anything, and it does seem, I feel like I understand the reasonings that Catherine gave us this evening, and articulating what the sort of elements of change over time from the original sector plan to what this proposal is. So I appreciate other commissioners, especially former planning commissioners that sit on the county commission now, and their perspective about the sort of long-term perspective about this planning document, and the way in which we sometimes are asked to consider updates. And so I don't have any reservations about this. To your comment, Commissioner Willie, I think that the potential concerns or reservations that I could see being raised about some possible future plans and actual development of these parcels into the future can and will be dealt with, and have a lot of opportunity to be dug into further. And potentially adjusted along the way in a much more minute way, I suppose, and detail oriented. That's going to be really specific to obviously the annexation, the rezoning, and then things like site plans and permitting and whatnot. So I'm supportive of this, and I appreciate the public comment and the public engagement. I think that there's some valid points there, and I feel similarly about maps and and I don't know that making an illustrative change that our body needs to make direction about that in the context of this particular decision before us tonight.
I appreciate the comments everyone has made. I say the only other comment that I have is knowing the impacts that this will have to the city. I would have preferred that the city would have heard this prior to us so that we could have understood those impacts to the city and then had this come before us after they voted because it does directly impact the city more so than it potentially could impact the county. And I just think that is super important when we think about the infrastructure changes, when we think about the overall impact that the development is going to have on the city of Lawrence overall, and on the changes to the comprehensive plan itself, and the developer wanting to do business in the city of Lawrence, and the fact that the comprehensive plan is changing because of the development that will be happening in the city of Lawrence. I think though that should have been heard within the city and then come to the county. But that is a preference. I also appreciated the comments that came, and I also agree the delineation and ensuring that we understand the open spaces moving forward within the comprehensive plan. I think that is really important to ensure that that is clearly delineated and we understand that moving forward so that anyone that opens it up can truly understand what we're looking at, what we're seeing, and that that story is clearly told, because not everyone understands that story and not everyone has been here through that entire journey from the beginning to the end.
Commissioner Anderson, I similarly kind of went through the process of like, what is this the right order of operations with it? Because I think we're making some assumptions about that the city is interested in its investment and interested in expanding into the West. And I think that I think we can say that that's really true. But I wondered at that too, if it shouldn't have maybe gone to the city before us. But I reckon, I mean, it is currently in unincorporated Douglas County, so it's our jurisdiction at the moment. But it did make for some interesting thought process in my head about how much are we kind of assuming of their needs. But they'll get to weigh in also. But yeah, I also kind of had that mental exercise of was this the right way to go about it?
I don't have any comments that haven't been made by others.
Motion if the chair is interested. I move to approve the comprehensive plan amendment AMDT 26-0012 to Plan 2040, Chapter 8C, specific plans, revising the west of K10 plan to include changes to the recommended future land use designation and to revise the future land use map and to incorporate general revisions and updates to the west of K10 plan and adopt ordinance number 10255 or county resolution number 26-13.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to the conclusion of our regular business meeting, commissioners. I don't have any appointments queued up unless anybody wants to correct me.
I think we just might.
Okay.
Right.
I might have missed part of the memo.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. Go ahead.
Bet. So I think we have two names for the Board of Zoning Appeals, BZA, and we've been we've had some openings there for a while, and I think we still will have an opening after we do this. But Charlie Thomas, who had been serving there and has been off for the duration of a term, has been willing to step back onto that, and I I'm comfortable with that and would be happy to make that motion. We also have Kate Deneen, who was a long-term volunteer with emergency management. So I think some of us know her through that, has offered also to serve with that on the BZA. And both of those have had conversations with staff. And I would make those motions unless there's any other conversation. Okay. I move to appoint Charlie Thomas to the BZA.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. I move to appoint Kate Deneen to the BZA.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Willie. Appreciate you being on top of that.
I had another question. I probably should have asked it earlier when we had Robert on, but we voted on in our consent agenda that we had pulled the full slate of our LEPC. Do we need a vote specifically that we're nominating Greg Gardner again or appointing Greg Gardner again? Do you know, Sean? I should have asked while we had Robert.
I think your motion earlier today included that full slate. So I believe that that action appointed him.
Okay.
So if I'm wrong, I will make sure to bring this back to you all.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for catching that. I'd say since we raised the question about it, just to verify that, I know that staff have been doing some work to make sure we have as much consistency with all of our appointments across all the various boards anyway. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the memo first. Sean?
Yep. Thank you, commissioners. The memo is attached. I do just want to draw attention. There are several reports included within it. So please take a look at all of those. And then the only other thing I want to draw attention to is the canvas for the 2026 primary election that will be on Monday, August 17th at 9 a.m. If you are not available to attend that, please let me or Robin know. But we do need majority of you all there to do that. So just want to put that at the top of your list of things to consider. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff about the memo? Anything else for the good of the order from commissioners? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Dorsey. Do you have something? I'm always watching fingers on buttons.
We got a email, I think, just shortly before the meeting started. Did anybody refer that to Sean? It was listed as anonymous, but
The land property with I've got that going to the treasurer and to Sean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.